Chapter 9. Natalie. I was too slow. Brandon's arm continued downward, slashing the blade through the left side of Dr. Turner's neck. Everything proceeded in slow motion, except for the blood spraying out of Dr. Turner. He brought his right hand up to the wound and grabbed the knife. His left hand tried to move but fell back to the side, limp. Brandon pulled the knife out and spun to face me. A spray of blood struck him in the chest, causing him to laugh maniacally. "And now to deal with the last problem in my life." He bent his elbow and held the blade against his neck for a moment before slicing deeply across it. He collapsed on the floor next to Cameron, their mortal wounds quickly covering the tile floor in blood. I leaned to the head of the bed and pressed the code blue alarm before jumping over the bed and placing both hands on Dr. Turner's neck to hold pressure on the wound, slowing down the bleeding significantly. But I couldn't stop it all the way. He must have hit the carotid artery. He needs a surgeon, not an ER nurse. I screamed both to summon help and to release some of the emotion from the last 30 seconds. Cameron tried to speak, but could not make a sound. I saw his lips move slowly as his eyes rolled back in his head, moments before he collapsed to the floor. The door to the room opened as my scream ended. Their shouted questions and orders maintained the chaos of the room. "We need help in here! Bring an extra bed! Security!" More staff rushed into the room and pulled Dr. Turner out into the hallway, where they could work on him. Dr. Potter arrived and took in the carnage. "Get that bed over here and let's get him up on it. Someone overhead, page cardiothoracic surgery and trauma to the ER, now!" he said, his voice strong yet urgent. He leaned down and pressed my hands harder into his partner's wound. "Come on, Cam, we got you. Don't give up, buddy," he whispered to his unconscious friend. "Get respiratory therapy to the trauma room. We need to intubate him immediately." Our eyes locked together. "Whatever you do, do not let go, and make sure you're not occluding his right carotid artery." I nodded and continued to lean down on Cam's neck as hard as I could. My knees straddled his chest, as it was the only position I could maintain pressure as we moved down the hallway. The team rushed us into the resuscitation bay, a room that could function as a sterile operating room if absolutely necessary. Dr. Potter stood at the head of the bed and began delivering oxygenated breaths to Cam, using a mask. The respiratory therapist quickly assembled supplies and signaled that he was ready for the intubation. My colleagues quickly placed 2 IVs and started running fluids using a pressure bag. "Blood pressure 74/40. Dr. Potter fired off orders in rapid succession. "Hang the first 2 units of uncross-matched blood. Blast it in on the pressure infuser. Let's give him a good dose of ketamine, and let's get him intubated. I don't want a hematoma to close off his airway," he said. "Does he have a pulse in his left arm?" he asked to anyone who was free. "Yes, I have one, but it's weak," came a shouted reply. A few moments later, the same voice added, "It's about the same as the pulse in his right arm." "Someone pinch his fingernails and toenails. Let me know if he withdraws to pain," he said before leaning over his friend. "We'll take care of you, Cam. You're going to hold your wife and son again, I promise you." "He moved everything except his left arm," replied the same voice as earlier. Dr. Hans Albrecht, trauma surgery. "Hey, Hans, that was a heck of a case. If I ever need a trauma surgeon, I'm coming to see you." I looked up from my magazine to see who offered the compliment. Several doctors stood around the room grabbing refreshments, but the comment must have come from one of our new orthopedic doctors. He held a bagel in his right hand and a bag of Cheetos in his left, and was grinning at me like we were best friends. "Thanks. Keep eating like that, and it'll happen before you know it." Doctors were one of the dumbest people on the planet. It was one thing to live poorly because you don't know better. It was another thing to know the correct things to do and then do the opposite. He'd never make chief of surgery. They reserved that position for people like me. I went back to my magazine and allowed him to wander off. I had another 20 minutes before the anesthesiologist would be ready for my next case. And I take about 15 minutes to read a magazine, if I'm not interrupted. A harsh tone sounded from the speaker in the ceiling. The code blue alarm. That better not be one of my patients. Last I checked, they were all doing fine, despite the best efforts of the ICU staff. Trauma and cardiothoracic surgery. Report to the ER. Stat. Repeat. Trauma and cardiothoracic surgery. Report to the ER. Stat. I looked around the room and saw multiple pairs of eyes staring at me expectantly. I sighed and rocked forward to stand up from the couch. Typical. ER can't handle anything by themselves. Probably Turner down there needing to be bailed out of a procedural blunder again. They never fix anything. Just spin the Rolodex and call whatever subspecialty it lands on. The door on the opposite side of the room burst open, and a gowned surgeon rushed through. Come on, Hans, let's see how we can help. I was about to step into a bypass case, but this sounds more critical. They don't call for help like that very often. I folded the top corner of the page down and tossed the magazine onto the table next to the couch. I made it into the hallway in time to see the stairwell door slam shut. Stairs? Come on, the elevators are right there. I swiped my badge at the reader and pushed the down button. The badge activated an override system that summoned an elevator immediately. Whatever was happening in the ER could wait another 15 seconds.